Welcome back to another episode of Rock Boys Football. We're scrolling through the final updated 2024 high school class recruiting rankings and kind of started to realize how special this defensive line class for the Miami Hurricanes truly is. And you're starting to see some guys that when we were breaking down their commitments months ago saying these guys are probably undervalued according to some of those recruiting services, get massive bumps and deservingly so. Guys like Marquise Lightfoot, guys like Booker Pickett Jr. getting massive jumps. I want to talk about what this Miami Hurricanes class looks like specifically on the defensive line. And you look back at what Mario Cristobal and this staff did in 2023, bringing in a extremely impressive offensive line group. You look at this Miami Hurricanes team and kind of looking at the future. And this is going to be one of those teams that is dominant along both sides of the line of scrimmage. And that is going to be something Mario Cristobal wants to build within this program, that physicality at the point of attack. And he's getting it done with the talent acquisition. For Miami fans, and I think you have to be extremely excited about this class and really where this team is going from a culture and physicality standpoint. Want to dive in to this Miami Hurricanes class, specifically talking about the guys that they have bringing in or coming in, I should say, on that defensive line. Really excited to do so. Before we do, just want to say thank you to you guys and a shout out to the Miami Hurricane fans. I mean, this was a 2024 class that we had a blast breaking down all of these commitments. A lot of guys that we're going to be talking about today, we covered when they committed to Miami. But when you take a bird's eye approach, like you start to really realize how balanced and how special this class is on that defensive line. Excited to get into it. If y'all do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. Again, appreciate you guys and all the support you guys have shown the boys. And without further ado, let's get into this Miami Hurricanes defensive line. It's obviously headlined by five-star defensive lineman Justin Scott. And you can kind of just turn on the film in the first three plays. You kind of get a sense of why Justin Scott's a five-star, 6'4", 310 pounds, really a grown man. But the combination of the size, of the athleticism, and the power that he has in his hands, really, that's what makes him a five-star. This is a guy that I would not be surprised to see play early for the Miami Hurricanes. But I think what makes this such an exciting class is you have some Mack trucks, if you will, guys that are just going to go right through offensive linemen, ton of power in their hands. I'd probably categorize Armando Blunt as kind of that Mack truck as well. Again, a guy that was a top 5 national player in the 2025 class before reclassifying. But then you have some guys that are kind of Ferraris, guys that are extremely good off the edge, that burst and bend. That's how they win. And the first guy I want to talk about is Marquise Lightfoot. And this was a phenomenal job by Miami in getting this commitment from Ohio State. This one came down to the last 12 hours in this recruitment. Marquise Lightfoot, when we talked about him, was kind of ranked around that 100 mark and has continued to climb up the rankings. He goes to the All-American Bowl where he's largely competing against some of the best high schoolers across the country and just look different. And I think what excites me most about Marquise Lightfoot, and if you're a recruiting nerd like me and you were watching the All-American Bowl, you saw that first step, his ability to get off the line of scrimmage with extraordinary amount of burst, and then that bend to win with speed around the edge. I mean, he made a lot of quality offensive tackles, high schoolers, just look slow off the line of scrimmage. And a guy like Marquise Lightfoot, I think, has the chance to play early for Miami. What you're most excited about with a guy like Marquise Lightfoot is, what does it look like when he puts 25 pounds on and maintains that athleticism, maintains that burst that he has, but also has a little bit more play strength, because you see he's got the length. He has the burst. He has that explosiveness off the line of scrimmage. He gets up to 235, 240 pounds. This is going to be a guy that I truly think has an extremely high ceiling as a pass rusher. And kind of another guy that I would lump right into that Ferrari-type pass rusher is Booker Pickett Jr. And I remember talking about Booker Pickett Jr. when he committed. He was a guy that I think was kind of a mid-4-star, sitting around the top 300 nationally. And I think we all watched his film and said, how is this guy so underrated according to the recruiting services? He, just like Marquise Lightfoot, goes to the All-American game and just looks different. And this was a guy that you couldn't really argue with the production that he had on Friday nights. Over 76 sacks, 61 tackles for a loss during his high school career, going into his senior year. A guy that was largely, extremely athletic, probably getting a little bit of a knock in his ranking because he's only 205 pounds. from what I've been reading about Booker Pickett Jr. He's up to 215 pounds, but I largely was looking at that film and saying, I don't really care what the number on the scale says because the play strength was never an issue. And you see how he wins. He wins with the speed. He wins with that burst and bend around the edge. He gets into this Miami Hurricanes program. Again, just like Marquise Lightfoot, put some weight on, which everybody does, especially the early enrollee guys. Guys going into their first year, getting that spring practice, and kind of more importantly, the weight room work. I have no lack of confidence, you should say, that Booker Pickett Jr. is not also going to get up to 230 pounds. And when he does, combined with Marquise Lightfoot, you're looking at two guys that I think really could be special in terms of how they can get after the passer with their speed, burst, and bend. And that's really, I think what excites you the most is kind of the variety of pass rushers that Miami is kind of developing. Because you look back to that 2023 class, you have a guy like Ruben Bain, who, again, might not be the bursty and bendiest guy that we've seen, but a guy that has extraordinary power in his hands and in that lower half where he's just going right through tackles. And so you have offensive linemen now that have to worry about the power of the hands of guys like Justin Scott, Armando Blunt, and Ruben Bain, but then also have to deal with the speed of a guy like Booker Pickett Jr. or Marquise Lightfoot. What excites me the most is how these guys kind of just balance each other out. And you continue to scroll down this list, and there's another guy that I'm extremely excited about, another guy that we talked about when he committed to Miami. And that's Artavius Jones, a guy that a lot of programs were trying to flip late in this cycle, a guy that you take a look at, the film, you see not only kind of very similar to the conversation of Justin Scott, an extremely big body that is a phenomenal athlete. Artavius Jones averaging over 10 points on the hardwood as a basketball player, has phenomenal feet, also worked in as a tight end. And this guy has legitimate tight end film in terms of what he can do in space with the football in his hands, creating separation in his routes. Phenomenal athlete that Artavius Jones is. And now he's 6'3", 280. Probably gets up to 300 by the time he's playing in the 2024 season. You have the power, the horsepower, if you will, with guys like Artavius Jones, Armando Blunt, Justin Scott. And then you have that Ferrari pass rushing mentality of the Booker Pickett Juniors and the Marquise Lightfoots. And you look at this Miami Hurricanes defensive line and this pass rush unit going into 2024 and 2025 already with guys like Ruben Bain and Jaden Wayne in the 2023 class. This is going to be a Miami Hurricanes defensive line that is really going to be special over the next couple of years. And you have a guy like Jason Taylor working with these guys and developing these guys. I look at this Miami Hurricanes program, and we kind of talked about it a couple of weeks ago, and you guys corrected me here. I said Miami is kind of following the Michigan model. And you said, no, they're following the old school Miami Hurricanes model. And whatever model that is, whether it's the Michigan one that we just saw, the old school Miami Hurricanes one, I like this model. And you have the conversation about all these programs going to the speed and space and trying to play spread offenses. I think Miami, just like you saw Michigan, is not necessarily going to – Miami's never going to lack speed and space, right? The guys that they can recruit from the state of Florida, they're going to be fast on the perimeter, right? You have guys like Nykar, JoJo Trader coming in. The speed's going to be just fine. But you're going to see Miami, I think, pivot to establishing the line of scrimmage, winning the line of scrimmage. I'd even go as far as dominating the line of scrimmage. That was a recipe that worked for Michigan. I think it's going to work for the Miami Hurricanes too. I think they're getting a leg up on a lot of programs along the line of scrimmage. And if you're a Miami Hurricane fan, that's probably what you have to be most excited about. Now, tomorrow, I already started it. We're doing our deep dive into this Miami Hurricanes defensive line position group heading into 2024, where we talk about guys like Ruben Bain, like some of the transfers in Clark and Marley Cook. Really excited to do that, but wanted to just kind of highlight what Miami is doing on the recruiting trail here. It has me fired up, especially seeing guys like Booker Pickett Jr. really get the respect they deserve according to the recruiting rankings. And I'm not a rankings guy, but it's nice to see Booker Pickett Jr. getting some respect there. Appreciate you guys rocking with the fellas. If y'all do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel, and we'll talk to y'all later.